I sat in that courtroom with my head shaved bare, humiliated, exposed, stripped of everything. My sister did this. She wanted me broken. She wanted me silent. But when the judge walked in, her smug smile disappeared. Because the man in that robe, he was mine. Let me take a breath. My name is Harper. I'm 32 years old, a freelance graphic designer, and for most of my life, I've been invisible. Not the kind of invisible where people look past you on the street, the kind where your own family forgets you exist, where birthdays come and go without a card, where graduations happen without a single familiar face in the crowd, where you learn very early that love isn't something you get. It's something other people have, and you just watch. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you know what it's like to be the one who's always wrong, stay with me. And if this story resonates, hit that subscribe button. I promise by the end, you'll see why silence can be the most powerful weapon. I need to take you back to when I first understood what it meant to be the spare child, the one they kept around out of obligation, not love. I was 10 years old. It was my birthday, March 14th. I remember because it was exactly 2 weeks after my sister Vivian's birthday, and hers had been different. Vivian's 12th birthday party had been at our house in suburban Connecticut. 30 kids, a bounce house in the backyard. A 3-tier cake from the fancy bakery downtown, the one that required a deposit. Mom and Dad had taken the day off work. There were balloons tied to every chair, a magician, goodie bags stuffed with candy, and toys that probably cost more than my entire birthday budget. I'd helped set up, blown up balloons until my lungs ached, arranged the chairs. Smiled when Vivian opened her gifts, a new laptop, clothes from the stores she loved, concert tickets to see her favourite band with Mom. 2 weeks later, it was my turn. I came home from school expecting something, not what Vivian got. I knew better than that. But maybe a few friends, maybe pizza, maybe Mom and Dad home early at least. The house was empty. There was a note on the kitchen counter. Harper. Cake in fridge. Dad and I had to run to Vivian's school for parent-teacher conferences. Be home by 7. Love, Mom. I opened the fridge. There was a small sheet cake, plain white frosting, happy birthday written in shaky letters. No name. It was from the grocery store, the generic kind you grab last minute. I pulled it out, set it on the table, found candles in the drawer, mismatched ones left over from previous years, stuck them in the cake, lit them with shaking hands, and I sang to myself, "Happy birthday to me, happy birthday to me, happy birthday, dear Harper. Happy birthday to me." I blew out the candles, made a wish. The same wish I'd made every year. Please let them see me. They came home at 9. I was already in bed, the cake barely touched, candles melted into the frosting. Mum poked her head in. "Did you have a good birthday, sweetie?" I nodded in the dark. She closed the door. I learned early I wasn't the child they celebrated. I was the one they tolerated. 7 years later, I graduated high school. Top of my class, scholarship to Parsons School of Design in New York. I'd worked so hard, stayed up late finishing projects, entered every competition, built a portfolio that got me noticed. Vivian was graduating college the same day, same city, Columbia University. Mom and Dad flew in from Connecticut. They stayed at a hotel near Vivian's campus. My graduation was at 10 a.m. Vivian's was at 3 p.m. Mom called me the night before. Harper, honey, we're so proud of you. But Vivian's ceremony is the big one. College, you know, and the timing's tight. You understand, right? You can just go with your friends. You're independent. You've always been so good at that. Independent. That was their word for it. Their way of making abandonment sound like a compliment. I walked across that stage in my blue cap and gown, shook the principal's hand, held my diploma, smiled for the photographer. And I looked out into the audience, saw families hugging, mums crying, dads taking 1,000 pictures, grandparents beaming. My row of seats, the ones I'd reserved just in case, was empty. I stood there, diploma in hand, surrounded by empty chairs. That's when I realised I was alone, and I always would be. I moved to New York, built a life, found work, made friends who actually showed up, started to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could be someone outside of that house, someone who mattered. And then Mum got sick 5 years ago, breast cancer, stage 2, treatable but aggressive. She needed someone during chemo, someone to drive her to appointments, sit with her during the bad days, make sure she ate, help her to the bathroom when she was too weak to walk alone. Vivian was in California by then, tech job, big salary, engaged to a venture capitalist named Derek. She said she couldn't take time off. The company needs me, Harper, you understand? I understood. I always understood. So I put my life on pause, sublet my apartment, moved back to Connecticut, spent 3 months as Mum's full-time caregiver. I held her hair when she threw up, changed her sheets when she was too weak to move, slept on the couch so I could hear if she needed me in the night. Dad came home from work, ate dinner, watched TV. He thanked me sometimes. Mostly he just looked tired. Vivian called once a week. How's Mum? Always rushed, always on her way to something more important. Mum finished her treatment. The cancer went into remission. The doctors said she was lucky. She was going to be fine. Dad threw a party to celebrate. A new beginning, he called it. Family and friends, catered food, champagne, I helped set up. Again, I was good at that. Mum stood in the living room, glass raised, surrounded by everyone who mattered to her. She gave a speech. I can't thank you all enough for your prayers and support. This journey has been the hardest thing I've ever faced. But I made it through because of the people who love me, my husband, who never left my side. Dad smiled. And my daughter Vivian, whose prayers gave me strength. She's always been my rock. I don't know what I'd do without her. Everyone clapped. Vivian, who'd flown in for the party, hugged Mom, cried, smiled for photos. I stood in the doorway to the kitchen, not in the living room, not part of the circle, not mentioned. I gave her 3 months of my life. She gave Vivian 3 words of gratitude. That's when I stopped hoping, but I didn't leave. Not yet. I stayed another year, told myself it didn't matter, that I was doing the right thing, that eventually they'd see. And then Grandma died. Grandma, my mum's mum, was the only person in that family who ever saw me, really saw me. She lived alone in a little house upstate, about an hour from my parents. After I moved back to take care of Mum, I started visiting Grandma every week. She was in her 80s, still sharp, still stubborn, still herself. We'd sit on her porch and drink iced tea. She'd tell me stories about her life. Growing up during the Depression, meeting Grandpa at a USO dance, raising 3 kids on a teacher's salary. She asked about my design work, looked at my sketches, told me I had a gift. "You're special, Harper," she said once. "Don't let them convince you otherwise." I didn't tell her how they treated me. She knew, she always knew. Grandma passed away 2 years ago, heart attack, quick, peaceful, the doctors said. At the funeral, I stood by her casket and cried. Not the polite, quiet tears people expect at funerals. The kind that shakes your whole body, the kind you can't control. Vivian came up beside me, put a hand on my shoulder. I thought for just a second that maybe she understood, that maybe grief could bring us together. She leaned in close, whispered so only I could hear. Harper always was a leech. Even in death she takes what isn't hers. I pulled away, looked at her. What are you talking about? She smiled, not a kind smile. You'll see. A week later, the lawyer read Grandma's will. She'd left me the house, the little house upstate with the porch and the iced tea and the stories, the house where I'd felt seen, the house where I'd mattered. Mom and Dad were stunned. Vivian was furious. She manipulated her, Vivian said, standing in the lawyer's office, her voice sharp. Grandma was old, confused. Harper spent all that time with her, probably whispering in her ear, making her think. Your grandmother's mental faculties were perfectly sound, the lawyer interrupted. I met with her multiple times. This was her decision. This is wrong, Mum said, her voice shaking. Harper, you can't accept this. It's not fair to Vivian. She's the eldest. She should what? I said quietly. She visited Grandma twice in 3 years. I was there every week. Because you had nothing else to do, Vivian snapped. You've never had a real career, never built a real life. You just latch onto people and take. I stared at her, at all of them. I'm keeping the house, I said. It's what Grandma wanted. I walked out of that office, moved into Grandma's house a month later, and I didn't speak to them again until 6 months ago. That was the moment I realized I wasn't family to them. I was a problem to be solved. I'd been living in Grandma's house for over a year. I'd made it mine, painted the walls, set up a home office, planted flowers in the garden. I freelanced from home, took on clients I actually liked, built a routine that felt peaceful. And I met Ethan. It was at a small art gallery in town, local artists. I'd gone alone just to get out of the house, to remember what it felt like to be around people who created things. He was standing in front of a painting, abstract, lots of blues and greys, the kind of piece that either speaks to you or doesn't. What do you see? He asked without looking at me. I stepped closer, studied the canvas. A storm, I said, but not a destructive one, the kind that clears the air. He turned, smiled. I was going to say chaos, but I like your version better. His name was Ethan Cross. He was a lawyer, corporate law mostly, but he'd recently taken the bar exam to qualify for judicial appointments. He was 35, kind in a way that didn't feel performative, and when he asked about my family, I told him the truth. I don't really have one. He didn't push, didn't pry, just nodded. Family's complicated. We started dating, slowly. Coffee, then dinner, then weekends where we'd drive to the coast and walk along the beach and talk about nothing and everything. He never made me feel like I had to explain myself, never made me feel small. 3 months ago, he proposed. No big production, just the two of us on Grandma's porch, the sun setting, the iced tea sweating on the table. I love you, Harper. I don't need you to be anyone but who you are. Will you marry me? I said yes. We started planning a small wedding, just friends. No family. Ethan understood. He had his own complicated history. Parents who'd divorced badly, a brother he didn't talk to. We were building something new, something ours. And then 4 months ago, everything started to fall apart again. It started with a text from Mum. Your father's turning 65. Vivian is organising a celebration, family only. No invitation, no details, just a notification, like I was supposed to know I wasn't invited, but also supposed to know it was happening. I didn't respond. Sent a gift card in the mail, generic, impersonal, the kind of thing you send to someone you barely know. Vivian texted me the day before the party. Don't bother showing up. No one wants you there anyway. I didn't go, but I saw the pictures, Facebook, Instagram, tagged photos from family friends, 50 people, backyard barbecue, live band. Dad cutting a massive sheet cake surrounded by everyone who mattered to him. One photo caption, surrounded by the people who matter. I wasn't tagged. I wasn't mentioned. I wasn't even a ghost. I was erased. I wasn't forgotten. I was erased. And then, 3 months ago, I got the letter. Legal envelope, certified mail. I signed for it, hands shaking, already knowing it was bad. Inside, a lawsuit. Vivian was contesting Grandma's will. The claim I had manipulated Grandma during her final years, exploited her dementia, isolated her from the rest of the family, coerced her into changing her will to benefit me. None of it was true. Grandma didn't have dementia. The medical records proved it. I hadn't isolated her. Vivian and my parents had just never bothered to visit. But it didn't matter. Vivian was suing me, and Mom and Dad, they were supporting her. I called Mum. She answered on the 4th ring. Harper. Mum, what is this? Vivian's suing me, and we're supporting your sister, Harper. This has gone on long enough. That house should have gone to Vivian. Grandma wasn't in her right mind. She was perfectly fine. The doctors said, we know what you did, Harper. You've always been good at playing the victim, but we're not falling for it anymore. She hung up. I stared at the phone, felt something inside me crack. Ethan found me on the couch an hour later, the letter still in my hand, tears dried on my face. Harper, I handed him the letter. He read it. His jaw tightened. This is bullshit. They're my family, Ethan. They're supposed to... They're not acting like family. They're acting like bullies. He sat beside me, took my hand. You're not going to settle this. You're going to fight and you're going to win. I don't know if I can. Yes, you can, because you're not alone anymore. I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere. 2 months ago, I tried to meet with them. One last attempt to fix this before it went to court. We met at my parents' house, the house where I grew up, where I learned to be invisible. Vivian and my parents sat on one side of the dining room table. I sat on the other. It felt like an interrogation. Harper, Dad started, his voice tired. This doesn't have to be complicated. Just sign over the house. Admit that Grandma wasn't thinking clearly. We can all move on. She was thinking clearly, I said. She wanted me to have the house. Because you manipulated her, Vivian said, leaning forward. You spent all that time with her, isolated her from us, made her think we didn't care. You didn't care? The words came out louder than I intended. You visited her twice in 3 years, Vivian. Twice. I was there every single week. I took her to doctor's appointments. I brought her groceries. I sat with her when she was lonely. Where were you? I was building a career, a life, something you've never understood. I had a life. I gave it up to take care of Mom and Grandma and you. You just Mum interrupted. If Grandma really loved you, Harper, why did she never say it out loud? Why did she wait until she was dying to put it in a will? I stared at her, felt the words hit like a slap. She did say it, I whispered. Every week. She told me I mattered, that I was special, that I had a gift. You just never listened. You were never there to hear it. Vivian leaned back in her chair, smiled, cold, calculated. You want this to go away, Harper? Sign over the house, admit what you did, and maybe we'll let you back into this family site. I stood up, grabbed my purse. I'm not signing anything, and I'm done begging you to see me. I walked out. No one followed. 1 month ago, I got another letter, this time from Vivian's lawyer, a demand, settle out of court, give up the house, or they'd escalate. We have evidence, the letter said, of elder abuse, financial manipulation. If you proceed to trial, we will present this evidence publicly. Your reputation will be destroyed. I knew it was a bluff. There was no evidence because I hadn't done anything wrong. But the threat was clear. They'd humiliate me. Publicly. They'd paint me as a monster. I broke down that night, sobbed until I couldn't breathe. Ethan held me on the bathroom floor, rocking me like a child. They're going to destroy me, I whispered. No, he said firmly. They're going to try, and they're going to fail. How do you know? Because I'm not going to let them. The next morning I made a decision. I called my lawyer, a woman Ethan had recommended, sharp and no nonsense. I'm not settling, I told her. I'm going to court and I'm going to fight. Good, she said, because we're going to win. What I didn't know, what Ethan hadn't told me yet, was that he'd been preparing for this, behind the scenes, gathering evidence, talking to Grandma's doctors, her neighbours, her friends, collecting testimony, building a case, because Ethan wasn't just a lawyer, he was mine, and he wasn't going to let them break me. 1 week before the trial, Ethan sat me down. There's something I need to tell you, he said. Okay, I've been gathering evidence for your case. I know your lawyer's handling it, but I've been helping medical records that prove your grandma was mentally sound. Financial records that show you didn't take any money from her. Testimony from people who saw how much you cared for her. I stared at him. You did all that? I'm a lawyer, Harper. This is what I do. But more than that, I love you. And I won't let them destroy you. Tears welled up. Thank you. He kissed my forehead. We're going to win this. I promise. What he didn't tell me, what I wouldn't find out until the day of the trial, was that he'd been appointed as a judge, district court, a position he'd applied for months ago before any of this started. The appointment had just been finalised. It wasn't public yet, and by pure random chance, or maybe fate, he'd been assigned to my case. The night before the trial, I was alone. Ethan had a work emergency, or so he said. He'd be at the courthouse, he told me, but he had to prep for something big. I sat in Grandma's house. Our house, now, if I won. I looked at myself in the mirror. My hair was long then, past my shoulders. I'd always kept it long because Mum said it looked pretty, because Vivian said short hair made women look harsh. I picked up the scissors, cut it myself, shoulder length, then shorter, a bob, clean, sharp. I looked at my reflection, saw someone I almost recognised. Tomorrow, I said to the mirror, I walk in as myself, not the girl they rejected, the woman they underestimated. I texted Ethan, I wish You could be there tomorrow. He replied immediately. I'll be there in spirit. You've got this. I smiled, put the phone down, tried to sleep. I didn't know that Ethan wasn't out of town, that he was at the courthouse preparing. That tomorrow, he wouldn't just be there in spirit. He'd be there in the one place that mattered most, behind the bench, in the black robe, as the judge. I woke up the morning of the trial with my stomach in knots. The kind of anxiety that makes your hands shake and your mouth go dry. I showered, dressed carefully, black suit, white blouse, minimal jewellery, professional, composed. The armour I needed to walk into that courtroom. I looked at myself in the mirror one last time. My hair, freshly cut the night before, framed my face cleanly. I looked strong. I looked ready. I had no idea what was about to happen. I arrived at the courthouse 30 minutes early. The building was old, imposing. Limestone columns, marble floors that echoed with every footstep. I found the courtroom number on the docket board and made my way upstairs. My lawyer, Patricia Chen, was already there. Sharp suit, briefcase open, papers organised. She looked up when I walked in. Harper, good, you're early. She gestured to the table on the left side of the courtroom. That's us. Vivian and her team will be on the right. The judge should be here in about 45 minutes. We'll go over everything one more time before... The doors opened behind me. I turned. Vivian walked in like she owned the place. Designer dress, probably cost more than my rent. Heels that clicked authoritatively on the marble. Hair perfectly styled. Makeup flawless. Behind her, Mom and Dad dressed like they were going to a country club luncheon, not a courtroom. And behind them a small crowd, aunts, uncles, cousins, Vivian's friends, a support group, a statement. Look how many people are on our side. Look how alone you are. Vivian's eyes found mine across the courtroom. She smiled, not a friendly smile, a victor's smile. She walked toward me, her heels echoing. Stopped a few feet away. Nice haircut, she said, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Trying to look professional? It won't help. I didn't respond, just turned back to Patricia, who gave me a small nod. Ignore her. Vivian laughed. A light, airy sound. Then she walked to her side of the courtroom, her entourage following like a court surrounding a queen. I sat down, tried to steady my breathing. Bathroom, I muttered to Patricia. I need a minute. She nodded. We have time. Go. I grabbed my purse and walked out into the hallway. Found the women's restroom down the corridor, pushed through the door. The bathroom was empty, sterile white tile, fluorescent lights, 3 stalls, a row of sinks. I went to the sink, ran cold water over my hands, pressed them to my face. You can do this. You're not alone. Ethan believes in you. Patricia has the evidence. You're going to win. The door opened behind me. I looked up at the mirror. Vivian walked in. And behind her, 2 of her friends, women I vaguely recognised from family gatherings, women who'd never spoken to me, never acknowledged me. My stomach dropped. Harper, Vivian said, her voice suddenly cold. The fake sweetness from the courtroom gone. We need to talk. I grabbed a paper towel, dried my hands. I don't have anything to say to you. That's too bad, because I have something to say to you. She stepped closer. Her friends moved to block the door. My heart started pounding. Vivian, what are you... You really think you can win this? Her voice was low now, venomous. You really think a judge is going to side with you, the pathetic little sister who's been playing the victim her whole life? I'm not playing anything. Grandma wanted me to have that house. The will is legal. You have no case. We'll see about that. She smiled, reached into her designer handbag, and pulled out electric clippers. My blood went cold. Vivian, what are you doing? Making sure everyone knows exactly what you are. Her friends moved fast. One grabbed my arms from behind, pinning them. The other blocked me against the sink. I tried to pull away, but they were strong, and I wasn't ready. Let me go! I shouted. Vivian turned on the clippers. The buzzing sound filled the small bathroom, loud and mechanical and terrifying. You want to stand in that courtroom and pretend you're the good one, Vivian said, stepping closer. Let's make sure everyone sees the truth. Vivian, stop! She pressed the clippers to my head. I struggled, tried to jerk away, but her friends held me tight. I felt the cold metal against my scalp, felt the blades catch and pull and shear through my hair. Chunks fell into the sink, into my lap, onto the floor. Stop it! Stop! Vivian didn't stop. She dragged the clippers across my head again and again, not evenly, not cleanly, just hacking away, leaving patches of scalp visible, uneven chunks sticking up at odd angles. You're nothing, Harper. You've always been nothing, and now everyone's going to see it. I felt tears streaming down my face, not from pain, from humiliation, from the sheer violation of it. When she finally stepped back, my hair was gone. What was left looked like a disaster. Uneven, patchy, ugly. Vivian's friends let me go. I slumped against the sink, my legs shaking. Vivian tossed the clippers into the trash, looked at me in the mirror. Now you look exactly like what you are. A joke. She turned and walked out. Her friends followed. The door swung shut. I stood there, alone, staring at my reflection. Patches of scalp showed through, uneven tufts of hair stuck out at strange angles. The professional woman I'd seen in the mirror this morning was gone. I looked broken. I looked like exactly what they'd always said I was. I touched my head with shaking hands, felt the rough, uneven surface, the cold patches of skin. My phone buzzed, a text from Patricia. We're starting in 10 minutes. Where are you? I looked at myself one more time. Thought about running, about not going back in there, about disappearing. But then I thought about Grandma, about the house, about Ethan's words. You're not alone anymore. I took a breath. Grabbed paper towels, wiped my face, tried to smooth down the patches of hair that were left, but it didn't help. There was no fixing this. I walked out of that bathroom with my head held up, not because I felt strong, because I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. I walked back into the courtroom. Every head turned. The whispers started immediately. I heard them, sharp, hushed, shocked. Oh my God, what happened to her? Did she do that to herself? She looks insane. Vivian and her family were already seated at their table. Vivian looked at me and smirked, whispered something to Mom. Mum's hand flew to her mouth, but I saw the smile she tried to hide. Patricia stood up when she saw me. Her eyes widened. Harper, what? Don't ask, I said quietly, sitting down beside her. Just don't. She stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, we'll deal with this later. Right now we focus on the case. I nodded, but inside I felt like I was falling apart. This was their plan, humiliate me so badly I'd crumble. So the judge would see me as unstable, unworthy, crazy, and for a moment I almost believed it. The bailiff entered from a side door. All rise for the Honourable Judge Ethan Cross. The room stood. I stood automatically, my legs unsteady, my mind still reeling. Cross, that was Ethan's last name. My head snapped up. The door to the judge's chambers opened. And Ethan walked in, black robe, composed, professional, his face calm, neutral, the face of a man who'd done this 100 times. But it was him, my Ethan. He walked to the bench, sat down. His eyes scanned the courtroom, professional, detached. And then they landed on me. For just a fraction of a second, his expression changed. His eyes widened, his jaw tightened. He saw my head, saw what they'd done. Then the mask came back, professional, impartial. He picked up his gavel, tapped it once. "Please be seated." The room sat. I sat. My hands were shaking so hard I had to clasp them together in my lap. Ethan was the judge. Ethan was the judge. On my right, I heard Vivian's sharp intake of breath, heard her whisper frantically to her lawyer, "Who is that? Who?" Her lawyer was flipping through papers, his face going pale. "Judge Ethan Cross, recently appointed. Wait." I saw the moment Vivian realised, saw her face go from confusion to recognition to horror. Her lawyer leaned over. "That's her fiancé." Vivian's face went white. Ethan's voice cut through the whispers. "This court is now in session. Case number 2024 CV 8873. Vivian Hartley versus Harper Hartley, contesting the last will and testament of Eleanor Hartley." His voice was steady, authoritative. No hint of the man who'd held me on the bathroom floor a month ago while I cried. Vivian's lawyer stood. "Your Honour, I'd like to request noted," Ethan interrupted. "Denied. This case has been on the docket for 3 months. We proceed." The lawyer sat down, looking stunned. Ethan's eyes moved across the courtroom, landed on Vivian's table, lingered for just a moment, then moved to mine. When our eyes met, I saw something flicker there, something that said, "I'm here, you're not alone." Then he looked down at his papers. "Counsel for the plaintiff may present opening statements." Vivian's lawyer stood, a man in his 50s, expensive suit, the kind of lawyer who made his living defending people with money and no morals. "Your Honour, members of the court, this is a simple case of elder manipulation. The defendant, Harper Hartley, spent the final years of Eleanor Hartley's life isolating her from her family. She took advantage of Mrs. Hartley's declining mental state, convinced her to change her will, and ultimately inherited property that rightfully should have gone to the eldest surviving heir. My client, Vivian Hartley." He went on for 10 minutes, painting me as a predator, a manipulator, someone who preyed on a vulnerable old woman. I sat there, listening, my butchered hair a constant reminder of their cruelty. When he finished, Ethan nodded. "Thank you, counsel." He turned to Patricia. "Defence may present opening statements." Patricia stood. Her voice was clear, strong. "Your Honour, the evidence will show that Eleanor Hartley was of sound mind and body when she made her will. Medical records will confirm she had no dementia, no cognitive decline. Financial records will show no suspicious transactions. And testimony from multiple witnesses, doctors, neighbours, friends, will confirm that Harper Hartley was a devoted granddaughter who cared for Mrs. Hartley out of love, not manipulation." She paused, looked at Vivian. "What this case is really about is a family that ignored an elderly woman for years and now wants to profit from her estate." Vivian's face flushed red. Patricia sat down. Ethan nodded. "The plaintiff may call their first witness." The trial began. For the next 2 hours, I watched Vivian's lawyer call witnesses, people who claimed Grandma had been confused in her final years. a distant cousin who said Grandma didn't seem like herself at a family gathering 2 years before she died. But every time Patricia tore them apart on cross-examination. When was the last time you visited Mrs. Hartley before she passed? Maybe a year before? Once in her final year? I was busy. Yes or no, please? No, I didn't visit. So you have no first-hand knowledge of her mental state in the final months of her life? No, but thank you, no further questions. Ethan remained impartial, asked clarifying questions, kept the proceedings moving, never once showed favouritism. But I could feel him watching me every time I shifted in my seat, every time I touched my ruined hair, I felt his eyes on me. Then Vivian took the stand. She walked up confidently, placed her hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Vivian's lawyer led her through the testimony. She played the role perfectly, sad, concerned, a daughter who just wanted to honour her grandmother's true wishes. My grandmother was such a strong woman, Vivian said, her voice soft, but in her final years she became dependent on Harper. Harper was there all the time, and I think Grandma felt obligated to leave her something. Did you visit your grandmother often? The lawyer asked. As often as I could. My career kept me busy, but I called regularly, sent cards, made sure she knew I loved her. Patricia stood for cross-examination, and this is where everything changed. Ms. Vivian, you testified that you visited your grandmother as often as you could. Can you tell the court how many times you visited her in the 3 years before her death? Vivian hesitated. Several times. Several? Can you be more specific? I don't remember exactly. Your Honour, I'd like to present Exhibit D. Visitor logs from Maplewood Senior Living, where Mrs. Hartley resided for the final 3 years of her life. Patricia handed a document to the bailiff, who gave copies to the judge and the jury. Ethan studied the document. His expression didn't change. Patricia continued. According to these logs, you visited your grandmother exactly twice in 3 years. Once in 2021, once in 2022. Is that correct? Vivian's face went red. I was busy. I had a career. And Harper visited how many times? Vivian didn't answer. Patricia looked at the document. 147 times. An average of once a week for 3 years. Would you call that manipulation, or would you call that devotion? Objection, Vivian's lawyer said. Argumentative. Sustained, Ethan said calmly. Now rephrase. Patricia nodded. Ms. Vivian, did you attend your grandmother's funeral? Silence. Ms. Vivian? I had a work commitment. You missed your own grandmother's funeral because of work. It was unavoidable. But you found time to file this lawsuit 3 months later. Objection. Sustained. Counsel, move on. But the damage was done. The jury saw it. The room saw it. Patricia wasn't done. One more question, Ms. Vivian. Where were you this morning before the trial began? Vivian froze. I was preparing. Were you in the women's restroom on the second floor at approximately 8:45 a.m.? Vivian's eyes darted to me, then away. I may have been. And did you encounter Harper in that restroom? We spoke briefly. Just spoke? Vivian didn't answer. Patricia turned to Ethan. Your Honour, I'd like to request a brief recess. I have additional evidence that's come to light. Ethan nodded. 15-minute recess. Court is adjourned. He stood. Everyone stood. He left through the side door. Patricia turned to me. Come with me. We walked into a small conference room off the main hallway. Patricia closed the door. What happened in that bathroom, Harper? I told her. Everything. How Vivian had come in with her friends. How they'd held me down. How she'd shaved my head. Patricia's face went hard. That's assault. Do you want to press charges? I just want this to be over. She nodded. Okay, but I'm bringing it up when you testify. The jury needs to know what kind of person we're dealing with. We went back into the courtroom. Ethan returned. The trial continued. And then it was my turn to take the stand. I walked up on shaking legs, placed my hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Patricia asked me gentle questions about Grandma, about the time we spent together, about why she'd left me the house. She said, I was the only one who saw her, I said quietly, who treated her like a person, not an obligation. She wanted me to have a place where I felt safe, where I felt loved. And did you manipulate her? No, I loved her, that's all. Then Vivian's lawyer stood for cross-examination, and he went for the throat. Ms. Harper, isn't it true that you've spent most of your life feeling overlooked by your family? Yes. Resentful even? Sometimes. And isn't it true that when your grandmother offered you attention, you latched onto it, used it? No, You saw an opportunity, didn't you? An elderly woman, lonely, vulnerable, easy to influence. That's not what happened. You isolated her from her family, made her think they didn't care. They didn't care. The words burst out of me, louder than I intended. Vivian visited twice in 3 years. My parents called on holidays and forgot her birthday. I was the only one who showed up. The courtroom went silent. Vivian's lawyer smiled, like he'd been waiting for me to break. So you admit you were resentful? I took a breath, steadied myself. I was hurt. I was overlooked. I was treated like I didn't matter for most of my life. But I didn't take it out on Grandma. I loved her, and she loved me. That's not manipulation. That's family. The lawyer leaned forward. You expect this court to believe you're the victim here? Look at you. He gestured to my shaved head. You look unstable, erratic, exactly the kind of person who... Objection! Patricia was on her feet. Your Honour, this is harassment. But I didn't wait for Ethan to rule. I touched my head, looked directly at the jury. This morning, I said, my voice steady now, my sister and her friends cornered me in the bathroom. They held me down and they shaved my head. Gasps from the jury, from the gallery. They wanted me to walk into this room looking broken, feeling broken. They wanted you all to see me the way they've always seen me, worthless. I looked at Vivian. She was pale, frozen. But I'm not broken. I'm here, and I'm not leaving. The courtroom was dead silent. Ethan leaned forward. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. Miss Vivian, stand up. Vivian stood slowly, her face white. Did you assault the defendant this morning? Vivian's lawyer jumped up. Your Honour, my client doesn't have to answer yes or no, Miss Vivian. Vivian looked at me, then at Ethan. It was a joke. She's exaggerating. Bailiff, please retrieve security footage from the second floor restroom hallway from this morning between 8:30 and 9:01 a.m. Your Honour, Vivian's lawyer said desperately, that's not relevant to the case at hand. It's relevant to the character of the plaintiff. We'll review the footage during deliberation. Counsel, you may continue. But Vivian's lawyer had nothing left. He sat down. Patricia rested her case. And then it was time for closing arguments. Patricia stood. Your Honour, the evidence is clear. Eleanor Hartley was of sound mind. She made her decision freely. Harper Hartley loved her grandmother and cared for her without expectation of reward. This lawsuit is nothing more than a family trying to take what they didn't earn. The will should stand. Vivian's lawyer gave his closing, but it was weak. The jury had already made up their minds. Ethan reviewed his notes. Then he spoke. The will is valid. The evidence is overwhelming. Ms. Harper will retain full ownership of the property in question. Relief flooded through me. I felt tears sting my eyes. Ethan continued. Furthermore, this court finds the claims of manipulation and elder abuse to be not only unfounded but maliciously false. He looked directly at Vivian. Ms. Vivian, your testimony revealed a pattern of neglect toward your grandmother. You visited her twice in 3 years. You did not attend her funeral, and today you assaulted your sister in an attempt to humiliate her in front of this court. Vivian stood, her voice shaking. This is biased. He's her. Sit down, Ms. Vivian, Ethan's voice was ice. My ruling is based solely on evidence. If you wish to appeal, you're welcome to try, but I assure you, no court will overturn this decision. He banged the gavel. Court is adjourned. Everyone stood. Ethan left through the side door. I sat there trembling, unable to move. Patricia squeezed my shoulder. You did it. Outside the courtroom in the marble hallway, Mum approached me. Her face was pinched, uncertain. Harper, honey, maybe we can talk. We didn't mean for things to go this far. Dad was beside her. You're still our daughter. Let's move past this. I looked at them, really looked at them. For 32 years I'd begged for this, for them to see me, to choose me, to love me. And now standing here with my head shaved and my dignity intact, I realized something. I didn't need it anymore. For 32 years I was invisible to you, I said quietly. I begged for your love, your attention, anything, and you gave me nothing, you. But the moment I have something you want, suddenly I'm your daughter again. Mum reached out. We're family. Family forgives. I stepped back. Family doesn't shave your head to humiliate you in court. Family doesn't erase you from birthday parties and graduations. Family doesn't sue you for being loved by someone you took care of. I looked at both of them. I'm not your family. I never was, and I'm done pretending. I walked past them, down the hall, out of the courthouse. Ethan was waiting outside, still in his robe, leaning against a pillar. When he saw me, he straightened. Harper. I walked to him, and I broke down. He pulled me into his arms, holding me while I sobbed into his chest. I'm sorry, he whispered. I couldn't tell you. Judicial ethics. I wasn't allowed to be involved personally once I was assigned the case, but I made sure you had the best representation. I made sure you had everything you needed. You were there, I said, pulling back to look at him. That's all that mattered. He touched my shaved head gently. His eyes were full of anger and sadness. They tried to take your dignity. They failed. I smiled through my tears. I'm keeping the house, not because of the property, because it's proof that I was loved, that I mattered to someone. You matter to me, Ethan said. You always have. I know, and I'm done with them, all of them. No calls, no reconciliation. They don't get to hurt me anymore. He kissed my forehead. Good. 6 months passed. Ethan and I got married in Grandma's backyard. Small ceremony, 20 people, friends who'd shown up, who'd stayed, who'd chosen to love us. I wore a simple white dress. My hair had grown back a little, short, pixie cut. My choice. This time. I looked like myself. We renovated the house together, turned the spare bedroom into my studio. I started teaching design classes to local kids, the ones who felt invisible, who needed someone to see them. Vivian tried to appeal. It was denied. She sent a few angry texts, then silence. Mum sent a letter 3 months after the trial, long, rambling, full of apologies and regrets and requests to start over. I read it once, then I threw it away. Ethan asked if I was okay. "I'm perfect," I said, because I was. One afternoon, a young girl came to my studio for her first class. She was quiet, hesitant. She sat at the back table, away from the others. After class, she lingered. "My family never comes to my art shows," she said quietly. I knelt down, looked her in the eyes. "Then we'll come. Me and everyone here. You're not invisible, not anymore." She smiled, a small, fragile thing. And I thought about 10-year-old Harper, sitting alone at a table, singing to herself. I wished I could go back. Tell her it would be okay, that she'd find people who saw her, who loved her, who chose her. But I couldn't. So instead, I chose this girl, and every kid who walked through my door feeling unseen. That night, Ethan and I sat on Grandma's porch. Our porch now. The sun was setting, painting everything gold. "Do you ever regret it?" Ethan asked. "Cutting them off completely?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "No," I said. "They wanted me to stay small, to keep begging, to keep hoping they'd love me. But I don't need their love anymore. I have yours, I have my own, and that's enough." He took my hand. "You're incredible, you know that?" I smiled. "I'm learning." They thought shaving my head would break me. They thought taking me to court would prove I was nothing. But here's what they didn't understand. I stopped needing their approval the moment I realized I had my own. I stopped waiting to be seen the moment I saw myself. And I stopped being their victim the moment I walked out of that courtroom and chose peace over revenge. I didn't win because the judge was on my side. I won because I finally believed I deserved to. To everyone who's ever been the invisible one in their family, the one who was tolerated, not celebrated, I see you. And I'm telling you, you are enough. You always were. You just needed to stop asking them for permission to believe it. Have you ever felt like you didn't belong in your own family? Like you were always the one left out, the one forgotten? You're not alone, and you're not invisible. If this story made you feel seen, leave a comment. Tell me your story. Because we're not family by blood. We're family by choice. And I choose you.